Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live. And we're actually with Jen Schumacher, who is on the East Coast, and Carol Singh, who is on the West Coast. Good morning or good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, yes. And Carol, just as a introduction, although everybody in the channel and marathon swimming world knows you,
Thank you.
wider audience of open water swimming may not know all of your accomplishments. Can you give us a brief background of how you've been involved with the Catalina Channel and open water swimming in general?
Oh, okay. Well, it started probably, well, I was a beach rat as a kid, but when I was in my 50s, I started swimming open water, and I did the Triple Crown. It was all mostly in the 90s, early 60s. I did the Triple Crown before it was the Triple Crown. So, and I've been involved with Catalina Channel Swim Federation for probably 25 years, and I'm on the board of directors now. And I love the Catalina Channel, and I take their entry forms, and I'm also the treasurer. So that's my role.
Yes.
And I'm glad to be here this morning. Thank you.
Approximately or exactly how many channel crossings have you participated in as a paddler, a coach, a observer, a swimmer?
Observer, a swimmer. Wow. You know what? I couldn't even begin to tell you. At least 100.
Yeah.
Because 20 years to a year, maybe only 50. A lot.
Yeah.
I love Catalina Channel. It's beautiful out there.
Yes, and then on the other coast, we have Jen, who is the representative of the younger generations. And Jen, how many crossings have you done of Catalina, first of all?
So I've done 2 Catalina Channel crossings as a swimmer, and then I've been a part of several as either a support swimmer, a paddler, even once or twice as an observer.
Yes, and your family is very involved with your swims, because I know your mother has been out there many times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably more people are familiar with my mom, Barb Schumacher. She's an absolute beast on the kayak. She got involved in this swim in 2008 when I did my first channel swim. Sorry, 2009. In 2008, when I told my parents what I was up to and what I wanted to train for, they were quite concerned and worried, like, most parents of a young 20-something-year-old would be. And the next day she had gone out and bought a kayak. And I thought it was just the most loving, sweetest thing that anyone could ever do. And she was there by my side throughout the entire training and swim. And since then, she's kayaked, the channel for dozens and dozens of swimmers. I think just the summer before COVID hit, she had logged 20 crossings. And so she's been engaged in about, 5 to 20 crossings every year since 2009. So. Yeah.
In fact, she's the Channel Federation's kayak coordinator at this time. She's wonderful. In fact, I knew Jen's grandparents because her grandparents were involved with masters swimming early when I started masters swimming. So so it's passed down. Yeah, for sure.
And Jen, what other swims have you done? I know you've done many.
Yeah, so Catalina was my first, and then after that, the bug bit, as they say. The following summer, I did MIMS and Catalina the other way, this one that we'll be talking about today, and a portion of the Kaluakahi channel, like 99.9% of it. The following summer, I did Tahoe and Lake Berryessa, and then the next year, I did Gibraltar, and an attempt at the English Channel. I was unsuccessful in 2012. I went in 2013 and did, in 2012, I also did End Wet. And then in 2013, I did the LA Bay swim from Malibu to Palos Verdes with Forrest Nelson. And then I took a break from soloing, and I'm now starting to gear back up in 2019, I did 20 bridges, now MIMS. And then this year I was training for the English Channel, and I had a slot and was ready to go and was training all the way up until I was no longer. So unfortunately plans changed, but instead I took that training and put it to good use and set the record for stage 4 of 8 bridges. And I've got a 2021 slot, so I'm looking forward to that.
Great. Now, you and I our paths had crossed and for various reasons, but related to Swim 22, which is a very unusual event, our paths crossed again because of a man named Chris Dahowski.
Mhm. Yep.
And could you share with us how Chris sort of came up with this idea and got you all together?
Yeah, sure. So Chris Dahowski was really the mastermind of this. As legend has it, he was trying to organize a relay, a Catalina Channel relay with his master's team, and couldn't get enough people to do it. And so him and a couple of his other ultra endurance crazy buddies, Dave Hartmeyer and Mike Voke, decided, well, you know what? Screw them. Let's do a relay of our own, and we'll each solo it as a relay. So 4 contiguous crossings, kind of in like a traditional 100 or 200 yard or 200 medley relay or free relay swimming style. And we'll just do it one at a time and string 4 crossings together. So they had the audacity to come up with this crazy idea. I'm not sure if they wanted it to be co-ed or if they just wanted someone with a little bit of experience under their belt, but about 2 weeks before MIMS in 2010, Chris Dahowski reached out to me via email and said, hey, we've got this idea. Would you be interested in being a part of it? And it was just such an odd timing for me. And I was like, really excited about the idea of it. I loved the idea of like a high five at the coast and, each end of it and just kind of go on your own solo adventure in between. But I reached out and I was like, hey, I'm about to do this thing. Let's meet up when you get back. And maybe I'm your gal. And if not, I can certainly give you some insight as to people who've been really helpful for getting me prepared and mentoring me throughout my channel swimming years. And we met when I got back from New York and had a phenomenal conversation. They'd clearly done their homework. They knew what they were up to. They'd been training. And so I signed on. I was like, sure, let's do this thing. So it was just a crazy adventure and so grateful to those 3 guys, to Chris, Dave, and Mike for getting me involved.
Yeah. What I thought was so cool and so challenging was literally what you just said, a high five. So David would swim across literally wherever he
Mhm.
landed, then Mike would take the baton and he would swim back. And then wherever he landed,
Mhm.
you would be there on shore, do the handoff, go back, and then hit with Chris doing the anchor leg. And I thought, that sounds really easy if you're in a relay in a pool. And as Carol knows, not even knowing where you're going to start from on a channel swim adds a whole nother level of uncertainty, possibly even frustration. I mean, in your particular case, Jen, where did you start from? I don't remember exactly where.
So I was really fortunate. I got to start from Terranea, but
Okay.
so like where I would have expected to start and where we had scouted out as a very likely place for starts and finishes. But that was certainly not a guarantee. And there was actually a little bit of drama around the start. I don't know if you remember, Steve, but
Yeah.
at that point, so Mike Voke unfortunately had some really intense conditions. Small craft advisory, 7 foot plus swells, really seasick during his swim and very much off the pace that he had anticipated. So unfortunately, his swim was not completed as a solo, but his crew and you hopped in and relayed it basically, so that there was someone there to touch the shore. And Mike actually was well enough to get back in, swim into shore with me, so that we could high five on the beach. Unfortunately, what happened though is as he was approaching the shore, as we were all approaching, there were these sea urchins all over the rocks. And it was really, I thought, a dangerous place to exit the water, especially if I was going to get back in the water for a solo. I didn't want to start the swim off bleeding and injured. So he finished wherever he could. I got closer to the more traditional spot at Terranea. Unfortunately, we didn't get a traditional high five. We, air fived, I
Got
guess.
it.
And then I started from there.
Got it. Got it. And just for background, we'll paint the picture. David Hartmeyer started from the mainland, then he
Mhm.
swam to Catalina, and he did it 11 hours and 50 some odd minutes. I don't remember
Mhm.
exactly. Then he handed off to Mike, and then Mike was the second leg. It was
Mhm.
terrible, terrible conditions. So we
Mhm.
couldn't even get any worse. And so he was pulled, and then we swam in
Mhm.
to mainland, because we knew that there was a certain time frame that you were expecting to start.
Mhm.
So we did that. Then you had almost the exact opposite conditions of Mike.
Yeah.
Suddenly and it was unusual because I don't remember exactly when you started. What that was in the morning, correct?
Actually, I started around 3 p.m.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had
So
been delayed a lot. Sorry, Carol.
yeah, you swam all night then?
Yeah,
Or
it was
half the night?
a the bulk of the swim was in the dark. I think I finished around 1 in the morning. Um, but yeah, it was an incredible experience, and the conditions just really were unfortunate for Mike's leg. And ironically, we had built the swim around hoping to get him the kind of quote unquote ideal swim.
Uh,
um, we'd sort of assessed each of our abilities, and with the three guys being new to the sport, I knew I wanted to take one of the reverse legs. And then Chris Stahowski, if you've ever swum with him before, is just an absolute monster, so he could easily do the other reverse leg. So we knew kind of like Chris and I would have the off direction, and Dave and Mike would have the kind of ideal Catalina to mainland direction. um, or sorry, no, did I get that backwards? It got very confusing.
yeah.
Um,
It
yeah, you're
sounds
right, because
like it.
Chris, you're right. Yeah, sorry. Man, it's been a bit of time, but also it was logistically challenging to think
Yeah.
through all this. Chris had the last leg, Catalina to mainland, which is a good direction, but also by that point we had anticipated being pulled off course by currents, and so we knew he might have a longer leg than the rest of us. We wanted Dave to set Mike up for the ideal Catalina to mainland, start around midnight type of swim.
Mhm.
Mike is an absolute, ultra athlete beast, but not the fastest of the four of us. So while we knew he had great endurance, we wanted him to have ideally the best conditions. And it was really just the luck of the draw and the cards we were dealt by the weather gods that he had the worst conditions of the four of us by far. So much so that it led to him not being able to accomplish the swim, and he was more than capable, more than trained. And in fact, about a month later, he came back and did it no problem. Um,
Oh, good for him.
but yeah. So he was able to finish that goal of his. But yeah, the second we got to shore and I started my swim, it was just these, the wind died down. It's these incredibly glassy conditions. I mean, the wind picked up a bit at night, but nothing like what he experienced. So I almost felt guilty swimming in those type of conditions after I knew what he'd gone through.
What struck me a lot was seeing the different teams of swimmers. So David, the leadoff leg, had his group of people. So it was not only just the swimmer who was changing, it was the
Hmm.
actual crew. So David goes and he had his crew. Then
Hmm.
Mike was the second leg and he had his crew, including his wife. Then
Hmm.
your extraordinarily professional crew. I mean, you had your mother who stayed in the whole time. You had
Hmm.
your pace swimmers. There were, I think, some of them were from your competitive swim club, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
from Novas.
And
Yeah.
then the last leg, we had another crew change, and we had Chris follow up. And
Hmm.
Carol, you may have remembered because I mean, from the Catalina Channel Swimming Federation perspective, I mean, there are four legs. There's four different, bits of documentation and observers and stuff. Do you recall that what was behind the scenes?
No, I just recall that there were we sanctioned it as 4 separate solo swims.
Got it.
And I think and Penny wrote up on our website, she wrote up a little history, or in her history section, she put in what all happened and how it went. But as a federation, we just counted it as 4 solo swims.
Yeah.
So, and we were glad to see Mike come back later and
Hmm.
get his solo in.
That's
So,
right. Mike came back, what, 2 weeks later or something? I mean,
or
pretty,
a month. Yeah. It was
yeah,
in that same season. Yeah.
yeah. Incredible,
Yeah.
incredible.
So,
I remember the last leg, because it was all, oh, the other thing too, it was all filmed. I mean, you had a very good NBC
Hmm.
producer who actually put together a pretty incredible bit of film on this. And I remember Chris, when he was coming in, he was heading directly toward Terranea, the
Hmm.
shortest point. And then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, he took a 90-degree turn and he was heading towards Cabrillo Beach. And I
Hmm.
guess there was a miscommunication that um, everybody wanted him to finish on Cabrillo Beach because it would be nice, camera work, etc. By this time, I had been on the boat about 55, 56 hours, and I wasn't thinking very clearly. And I just remembered, oh God, rubbing my eyes and looking at the shore, going, I could swear we're going parallel to the shore.
Yeah.
And Chris, who also was looking sort of at Terranea, then they guide him take a right hand turn, and then he's swimming parallel to the boat. He's thinking, oh, Steve and John York and Captain Pittman and all these people on the boat, they know what they're doing. So he just sort of went with it. But in fact, it was just a miscommunication, and they wanted us to land at Cabrillo Beach, and then I realized what we were doing, and other people realized what we were doing. I was like, hey, where are we supposed to land? Aren't we supposed to land just on shore? And so there was another compromise where the camera people were running down from Cabrillo Beach to some point in between Cabrillo Beach and Terranea. And finally, we just told Chris, go to shore, go to shore. And he looked it up and he said, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was that handled logistically? I mean, with the separate crews, did you all shift as the swimmer shifted? And did you do it on a Ponga boat or a Zodiac?
We got
Or
super fortunate. The LA Sheriff's Department graciously agreed to lend us some resources for the switch. So it was actually on the bottom scratcher with
Oh,
Captain Elliott. But because really, as much as we would have loved to go with John Pittman's crew, his boat was far too small to hold essentially two crews at a time.
yes.
So what we did was the bottom scratcher was loaded up with Dave and Mike and their crews first for the first half of the swim. And then pretty much everyone except for poor Steve and the camera crew was going to come off. And then myself and Chris and our crews were going to load up on the boat with the help of the LA County Sheriff's shuttling for us. So,
Hmm.
we each did have four different crews, but two of them were on the boat at any given time.
Ah, okay. So that wasn't quite so bad.
Yeah, well, partly we wanted to do that to prevent, swimmers from getting seasick early on. So, like, I mean, Steve being on the boat for 55 hours, I can't imagine after that then getting in the water to do a solo crossing. And really, I think that was part of Mike's downfall was he went into the water seasick. And as we all know and have experienced,
Yes.
when you're on a boat going the speed of a swimmer, trying to
Yeah.
get rest and being nervous and preparing for your swim, it's just not the ideal way to start off. So
Right.
Chris and I really wanted to be off the boat on those first two legs, and we were fortunate to find a way to do that.
yeah.
Okay.
And then were you there at the finish? I mean, you swam from the mainland to Catalina,
Mhm.
and then how did you get back to the mainland? Did you meet Chris, or what was that logistical decision?
So you could almost think of it like two out and backs, right?
Okay,
So my crew and myself were all on the bottom scratcher for the return trip with
got it,
Chris.
got it.
Which was nice because I ended up hopping in to support swim with him when, as you mentioned, Steve, he had some low points
Yeah,
because of the confusion over where he was going to finish and that tacking on extra distance. So I got in and swam with him a bit. I believe some of my crew had actually pace swam with him and gotten in for the kayak shifts. His leg ended up taking a bit longer than we had anticipated, and his crew had anticipated. So it was nice that we had kind of reserves on the boat.
yeah.
Hmm.
At that point, my mind was so foggy.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
had
can
no idea
imagine.
what was going on. Yeah.
yeah. I think we all were.
Tell us what the swim was actually a charity swim too.
Mhm.
So you were
Yeah,
raising money for and awareness of other things. What was the cause?
yeah. We were raising money for the Jay Nolan Foundation, an autism awareness organization, and we were really, really grateful to have such strong support. We were able to raise over 10 grand for that organization. It's a wonderful charity. They do great work, and I encourage viewers to check them out. But we had a really great partnership with them. It was a connection that Chris, Dave, and Mike had coming into the swim, so they knew that that's what they wanted to do the swim for.
Yeah. And overall, do you still the four swimmers occasionally get together or just recall old times, or have
You
you
know,
gone this way?
not as much as we'd like. Occasionally we'll message each other or share something on Facebook. Not that long ago, Chris shared the trailer for the the video that never ended up being made, but there was a really spiffy trailer put together by the NBC folks about the swim. And he shared it with us as sort of like a, Facebook memory and check in with everybody. I imagine those three are a little bit more frequently seeing each other since they're living in proximity. I broke the band up a bit when I moved out east.
Yeah, yeah. And tell us a little bit what you're doing now back east.
So I moved out here to take a position at West Point. I'm a mental performance consultant, or essentially a sports psychologist by training. And I was doing that at Cal State Fullerton until about 4 years ago when the opportunity came up to do this work with cadets at the U.S. Military Academy.
Yeah. And what, Carol, the other thing I'd like to end up with is, you were in the forefront of really the Catalina formation. I mean, there was, the early years, and then there was sort of a drought, 40s and
Yes.
50s and 60s, really not many people doing it. And
Mhm.
then Lynn Cox and her generation came in and made it popular with Penny Dean and Cindy Cleveland and
John.
John York, Dan Schlossberg, that whole group. And then
Mhm.
your generation came in.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, it went from a few people to a handful of people. And then all of a sudden, there were just this upward. And
Isn't
how
that
was that?
amazing?
Yeah, amazing growth and evolution of the Catalina Channel community.
Yeah, I think it was kind of the internet and kind of the yeah, I was kind of on the front end of the big, because when I swam Catalina, I think there were 4 other people at the banquet that night. We had one of
Wow.
the little rooms there at the
Wow.
DoubleTree. Yeah. So yes, it has really grown, and I know Linda Bamford was a key person in our start of the nonprofit, because
Yeah,
we're a nonprofit at this time. So
yeah.
yeah,
What, what,
it's but I think the open water swim community as a whole has just exploded. It's and now with COVID, I see so many more people in the water
yeah.
because they can't get in the pool. And yeah, it's amazing.
And how are
Uh,
you going to handle next year's Catalina Channel season? I mean, there's all this pent up demand.
I know it. I know it. And we're unsure, quite frankly, because look at the numbers at this point.
Yeah,
I think we're going to follow the science. We discussed it a little bit last night at our conference call. And everything is still so up in the air. We're unsure.
got it.
Forrest is going to put something on the website. Forrest is back, by the way.
Okay.
And he's going to put a little note on the website that we are still there.
Yeah,
And we'll do the best we can.
yeah.
Um,
What?
yeah, it's hard to know with the uncertainty all over the world. Can people travel? Can they? Yeah. Can they get a vaccine?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Well, Jen and Carol, thank you very much for this trip down memory lane in Swim 22 and this very unique and unprecedented relay crossing, four-way relay crossing with 4 different swimmers across Catalina.
Thank you, Jen. That was amazing. Yeah, it was fun to be here. Thank you, Steve.
Of course.